The galaxy had written humanity off as extinct centuries ago. Entire civilizations, the Dreyloks, the Kainari, the Aelth, had celebrated, confident that no human soul remained to challenge their dominance. Humanity was a myth, a cautionary tale whispered to terrify young commanders, the species that had once touched every corner of the stars, now gone. But in the dim, frigid expanse of the Orion Fringe, sensors aboard the freighter Erebus detected something impossible. A signal pulsed rhythmically across the void, strong enough to pierce the densest nebulae. It wasn't random. It was alive, a heartbeat. Commander Leora Vance stood on the edge of a crater that scarred a long-abandoned human colony. The ground trembled beneath her boots, shards of metal and stone rattling in response. Her eyes traced the outline of the object at the crater's center. It was no mere planet. It shimmered, pulsating with light that seemed almost sentient. Its surface shifted subtly, mountains rising and falling, oceans rippling like molten glass. This was a weapon, one the galaxy had never seen, and humanity had created it in secret. Her crew watched in awe and disbelief. Lieutenant Soren, the youngest on the team, whispered, It's moving, look." The planet's crust shivered, cracks spreading like veins of fire and light. From deep within, a low hum echoed, vibrating through the hull of their ship, the very air around them. Leora's hand instinctively went to her comms. "Report," she commanded, though she already knew what her instruments would say. All readings were off the charts. Matter, energy, gravity, it all behaved as if the planet had a mind of its own. The whispers had been true. Humanity had survived. Not merely survived, they had prepared, and the galaxy was about to discover that its confidence was misplaced. Leora swallowed hard. "Prepare the scanners for a full sweep. I want to know everything about this thing." Her voice betrayed a tremor she refused to acknowledge. Soren approached, awestruck. "Commander, it's like it's alive. I've never seen anything respond like this to our presence." A shadow flickered across the horizon, a massive ridge that no natural formation could explain. The planet shifted again, subtly but deliberately. It was aware. Every sensor, every probe, every signal they sent was acknowledged by some silent, monumental consciousness beneath the surface. And then the first tremor hit the crater, violent enough to throw Leora to her knees. Debris flew around them, and the ground beneath the colony quaked with an intensity that threatened to swallow entire structures. Her crew scrambled, clinging to whatever they could. Leora's eyes locked on the planet. From deep cracks, a glow pulsed like a heartbeat. "Commander, it's preparing something," Soren stammered. Leora's gaze hardened. Humanity had returned not as survivors hiding in shadows, but as a force the galaxy had never been ready for. The centuries of fear, the endless hunts to exterminate humans, all for naught. The air shimmered with tension as the planet's pulse grew stronger, reverberating through every sensor aboard their ship. Leora's heart pounded in her chest. She had survived countless battles, witnessed entire fleets destroyed, and navigated political storms that would have broken lesser men. But nothing had prepared her for this. Something massive was emerging from the core, something that would change the balance of the galaxy. And before Leora could react, the ground beneath them cracked violently, sending a shockwave toward the colony. Dust and sparks erupted into the sky. A low, resonant hum filled the air, rising in pitch until it almost felt like a scream. Leora clenched her fists. Humanity had returned, and whatever was coming, the galaxy had no defense. The tremor ended. Silence fell, but it was the kind of silence that promised a storm. From the planet's core, something began to rise. Across the void, Admiral Thyron of the Kainari High Command scowled at the readings on his command deck. A single celestial body was producing energy equivalent to an entire star cluster. Sensors screamed impossible numbers. "This cannot be," he muttered. "A planet functioning as a weapon." On the surface of the awakening human world, Commander Leora Vance's breath came in shallow gasps. The crater they had been investigating shifted beneath their feet. Mountains reformed, oceans boiled into molten rivers, and the crust reshaped as if the world itself was alive and breathing. The planet's heartbeat pulsed in the air around them, vibrating through the bones like some terrible mechanical symphony. A voice, human yet alien, echoed across their comms. "We are ready," it said. No one spoke, frozen in disbelief. Leora swallowed hard. "Ready for what?" she whispered, though she knew the answer already. This was no mere planet. It was a war machine, a sentinel of humanity's revenge. Then it moved. A colossal shadow, larger than any moon in the system, detached from the planet's surface. It rose silently into the black void of space, leaving a trail of glowing energy in its wake. Leora's stomach twisted. Her crew froze, staring at the sensor screens that had been rendered useless. The shadow's trajectory pointed directly at the nearest Kainari outpost, a world bristling with weapons and arrogance. The first strike was inevitable. The Kainari fleet scrambled, but it was already too late. The outpost vanished in a pulse of blinding energy, vaporized as if it had never existed. Communications went silent. Across the sector, fleets trembled. Panic rippled through command centers. Humanity, long thought extinct, was not only alive but exacting vengeance with precision. Leora's mind raced. "It's targeting only the hunters," she murmured. "It's intelligent." Her crew exchanged terrified glances. The planet was choosing its targets, calculating each strike with methodical cruelty. Every weapon deployed, every pulse emitted, had a singular purpose: revenge against the species that had nearly annihilated their creators. Meanwhile, the Kainari fleet commander's face drained of color as he watched the destruction unfold. "Deploy the full defensive grid, target the planet's core." He barked orders, but his subordinates hesitated. Every sensor sweep returned the same impossible conclusion. The planet's core was alive. It responded, adapted, and anticipated. Back on the surface, Leora noticed subtle changes in the terrain. The shadows of mountains stretched unnaturally. Rivers of molten metal flowed upward, defying gravity. The air pulsed with energy that seemed aware of their presence. Every movement they made was observed, processed, and accounted for by the colossal weapon beneath them. Soren, the youngest officer, whispered, trembling, "Commander, it's learning. Every probe, every scan, it knows what we're doing." Leora clenched her jaw. "Then we survive by being unpredictable, and by understanding it before it decides we're obstacles." From the horizon, another tremor rose, shaking the crater violently. Dust and debris erupted, clashing with the brilliant glow of molten metal rivers. The shadow that had departed returned, not with caution, but with force, its trajectory shifting subtly, aiming not just for destruction, but for strategic precision, as if the planet itself were calculating the next moves of an unseen chess game. And then a new pulse radiated from the planet's core, brighter, faster, and almost sentient. It wasn't just energy, it was communication, a warning, a promise. Leora's heart raced. Humanity had returned not just to survive, but to reclaim the galaxy. The question on every mind, every fleet, every command deck was the same. How do you fight something the galaxy cannot even comprehend? The shadow hung in space, waiting. Silence fell for the briefest of moments. Then the pulse of the planet's core flared as if it were about to strike again. And the galaxy realized in unison that the first true shadow of humanity had arrived. The Kainari outpost had vanished, and the galaxy was trembling. Across star systems, commanders scrambled to understand the impossible, a planet, alive and intelligent, targeting only those who had hunted humanity to near extinction. It was precise, merciless, and deliberate. Every pulse of energy, every distortion in space carried a singular intent: revenge. Commander Leora Vance hovered in her reconnaissance craft above the awakening human weapon. The sight was terrifying. Mountains reshaped themselves as if they had bones and muscles. Rivers of glowing metal flowed like blood, channeling energy into the planet's core. It was thinking, learning, preparing. Leora swallowed hard, realizing this was not a mindless instrument. It had strategy, judgment, even morality. "Commander," Lieutenant Soren stammered, eyes wide, "it's targeting the fleets that attacked human colonies. Civilians, they're unharmed." Leora's breath caught. Humanity's weapon, colossal as it was intelligent in a way the galaxy had never seen. It was judging who deserved destruction. And in that judgment lay a terrifying truth. The weapon operated with human cunning, with human memory, with human vengeance embedded in every pulse. Above the battlefield, panic spread like wildfire. Fleet commanders barked orders, missiles launched, shields engaged, but nothing worked. The planet's attacks were precise, almost surgical. Entire battle groups were obliterated before reinforcements could react. Ships evaporated into streams of energy, leaving nothing but whispers of their existence in the void. Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She had seen humanity at its finest in combat, but this was something beyond comprehension. This was the culmination of centuries of survival instinct, of ingenuity, of unyielding determination. Every child lost, every colony destroyed, every attempt to erase humanity had been accounted for, and now the galaxy was paying. Sensors aboard her craft caught a flicker in the planet's core. It hesitated. There was a heartbeat, a subtle pause. Something was off, or perhaps something missing. Leora's instincts screamed at her. Even the most brilliant weapon had limits, and this one's flaw could be catastrophic if exploited. Across the void, the Kainari High Command debated desperation measures. Admiral Thyron's hands shook as he looked at the sensor feeds. "Target the core," he barked. "Use the singularity disruptors, tear it apart." But his subordinates hesitated. No fleet had ever faced a weapon like this. Every calculation failed. Every simulation collapsed under the weight of impossible variables. Meanwhile, Leora's crew watched, horrified and awed, as the planet readied a second strike. Energy surged from its core like a living storm, a tidal wave of light and power that distorted the space around it. The ground trembled beneath them even as they hovered miles above the surface. Dust, molten rock, and debris rose like a tide of fire, painting the horizon in shades of crimson and gold. "Commander," Soren said, voice barely audible over the hum of energy, "it's alive, and it's angry." Leora clenched her jaw, the weight of the moment pressing on her. Humanity had returned not as survivors, not as refugees, but as a force that the galaxy could neither predict nor fight. Every fleet, every civilization, every warship faced a stark reality. There was no defense. And then the first pulse struck again. This time it wasn't just a warning. It was destruction, intelligent, targeted, and absolute. A starship exploded, light flaring across the void like a dying sun. Another followed, and another. Leora's breath caught as the realization hit her. Humanity's return was not mercy, not negotiation, not diplomacy. It was judgment, and the galaxy was unprepared. She looked at her crew, all faces pale but determined. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. From the planet's core, a pulse brighter and sharper than the last surged outward. The galaxy held its breath. The first strike had been a warning, and yet it left no doubt. Humanity had returned to reclaim the stars. The Kainari High Command panicked. Entire fleets had been erased, outposts obliterated, and every strike had been precise, surgical, almost intelligent. Admiral Thyron barked orders, desperate to coordinate a counterattack, but sensors detected nothing. No human survivors. No fleet, nothing but a pulse of energy, a planet-sized weapon that defied all logic. On the surface of the awakening human planet, Commander Leora Vance's reconnaissance craft hovered in awe. The ground beneath shimmered, reshaping itself continuously, mountains twisting, rivers of molten metal spiraling upward, and valleys forming in real time as if the planet itself were breathing. Then, like ghosts emerging from history, fleets of human ships appeared out of nowhere. Their hulls reflected starlight, sleek and deadly, but centuries-old designs revealed the ingenuity of survival. "Commander, they are ghosts," whispered Lieutenant Soren. "We never detected them before. How?" "They've been hiding," Leora realized aloud. Moving through the void unseen, preparing for this moment. Humanity survived, not scattered, but orchestrated, and now they're guiding the weapon. From the shifting terrain of the planet, a figure emerged, stepping out of the metallic waves. It was humanoid, glowing faintly with the same energy that pulsed from the planet's core. Leora froze, its eyes shone with intelligence and centuries of vengeance. "You've come too soon," it said, voice low but unwavering. "The galaxy has not yet earned understanding." The ground shook violently beneath them, cracks spiderwebbing outward as molten rivers surged. Leora's crew scrambled for stability, gripping their harnesses and walls. The figure raised its hands, and the planet responded, energy spiraling like a living storm around them. The air vibrated. The horizon glowed, and Leora could see a shadow detach from the planet once more, a living sentinel ready to move at a moment's notice. Soren's eyes widened. "Commander, it's preparing for something massive." Leora's jaw tightened. Humanity had returned, not as refugees or survivors, but as a force that calculated, anticipated, and controlled events across the galaxy. Every fleet that had hunted humans to near extinction, every civilization that had laughed at their supposed demise, was now within reach of this unprecedented weapon. The planet pulsed, its heartbeat resonating through Leora's craft. Each pulse was deliberate, a signal, almost a warning. Then came a sound, low and resonant, a hum vibrating through the core, through the hull of her craft, through her very chest. It wasn't just energy, it was awareness. The planet knew she was there, it was judging her. A sudden tremor surged beneath the crater. Dust and molten metal erupted into the sky, casting shadows that danced like flames. Leora realized with a shiver, the planet was readying its next move. Every energy pulse, every structural shift, every shadow cast in the rising dust was deliberate. It had patience, strategy, and intent. The figure stepped closer and its voice cut through the comms again. The galaxy will remember us, and when it does, it will understand the cost of arrogance. Leora's stomach twisted. Humanity was back, orchestrating vengeance with intelligence beyond comprehension. Yet there was something unsettling. Even as the ghost fleet moved into position, even as the planet prepared its strike, she sensed a tension, a hesitation, a hidden risk. The weapon, colossal and perfect, was alive, but alive with purpose, not infallibility. The first pulse of the planet's energy streaked outward, visible from orbit as a ribbon of molten light. Fleet after fleet trembled under its radiant force. The galaxy could only watch, paralyzed, as human ingenuity unfolded in its most terrifying, majestic form. Leora glanced at her crew, hearts pounding. The realization settled heavy on them. The planet was not merely a weapon. It was humanity incarnate, precise, strategic, and relentless. And the galaxy had no defense against what was coming next. The shadow in space paused, waiting. Silence descended over the crater as if the universe itself held its breath. And then the planet pulsed again, this time stronger, louder, a promise of devastation yet to come. Leora whispered almost to herself, "It's only the beginning." Vance descended into the planet's core aboard a small reconnaissance pod, her every instinct alert. The walls shimmered with pulsating energy, veins of light running like molten rivers through rock and metal. The hum of the planet was deafening, vibrating through the hull, her bones, even her thoughts. This was no ordinary weapon. It was alive, sentient, deliberate, and immeasurably powerful. As she floated deeper, she saw the remnants of human civilizations, ruins buried beneath layers of engineered terrain. Cities with impossible architecture, towers shaped to channel energy like arteries feeding the planet's core, streets flowing with metallic rivers. The designs were alien, yet unmistakably human. Every line, every structure was a conduit for power, a blueprint of vengeance. And then she saw it, a holographic figure projecting from the core itself. The face was familiar yet impossibly ancient. Admiral Jalen Vance, her ancestor, long believed dead. His eyes glowed with the same energy pulsing through the planet. "Welcome, Leora," he said, voice resonant, layered with the weight of centuries. "You are witnessing the culmination of humanity's final design." Leora's heart raced. You're alive?" she asked, though she knew the answer. The energy streaming from the planet made it obvious. "We built this not merely to fight, but to endure, to ensure that humanity would never be hunted to extinction again." The hologram's gaze hardened. "This planet is our last defense, our final weapon, and yet it is more than a weapon. It is a mind, a conscience, a guardian. Its purpose is not mindless destruction. It seeks justice, retribution, and survival. The galaxy will learn respect, or pay the ultimate cost." Leora's stomach churned. But at what cost? Entire civilizations, fleets, innocence. "They are calculated," Jalen Vance interrupted, his voice cutting like steel. "The planet judges. It strikes only those responsible for humanity's near eradication. We are precise, we are deliberate, and we are inevitable." A tremor shook the chamber, throwing Leora's pod off its trajectory. Sparks flew as metal conduits groaned under pressure. The planet pulsed violently, energy coursing through every vein, every channel. Leora realized with awe and terror. The planet was preparing its first true offensive strike, one that would reshape the battlefield of the galaxy. Through the observation ports of her pod, she saw the core open like a colossal maw, radiating power that twisted space itself. Energy tendrils lashed outward, distorting light and gravity. It was as if the planet were taking its first deliberate breath, readying to unleash its wrath. Leora's mind raced. Humanity had survived, yes, but they had created a force beyond comprehension, a sentient weapon capable of reshaping entire sectors. The responsibility of controlling or guiding this creation was staggering. One wrong move, and the weapon meant to defend humanity could just as easily annihilate it. She took a shaky breath. We have to understand it before it acts," she muttered, knowing full well that comprehension might come too late. The planet's pulse accelerated, vibrating through her pod like a living heartbeat. Dust and energy swirled in streams of molten light, forming patterns that were almost communicative, almost intelligent. Leora realized that the planet was not merely attacking. It was assessing, strategizing, and learning from every movement in the galaxy. The hum rose to a deafening crescendo. Leora's pod trembled violently. The energy from the core formed a colossal spiral, an aurora of devastation that could engulf fleets, moons, and stars alike. She gripped her controls, eyes wide. Humanity's final weapon was not just alive. It was aware, angry, and magnificent beyond reckoning. And then the pulse stopped for a heartbeat. Silence fell. Leora realized the terrifying truth. The planet could act at any moment. Its judgment was deliberate. Its vengeance was patient. And the galaxy, for all its might, had no defense against what was about to come. Her comms crackled. "Commander, the first strike is imminent," Soren whispered from orbit, voice trembling. Leora swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her ancestors' legacy and the planet's wrath. Humanity had returned, not merely to survive, but to assert its dominance. And in the stillness before the storm, she understood one chilling reality. This was only the beginning. Above the battlefield, entire fleets scrambled in panic. Kainari and Dreylock warships, once symbols of fear and power, now faltered before a force they could barely comprehend. The planet pulsed with energy, its glowing veins rippling across its surface. And from orbit, Leora Vance watched as destruction unfolded like a meticulously choreographed storm. Stars flared unnaturally as energy ripped from the planet's core, bending light and gravity, feeding into weaponized pulses that swept across sectors. Entire battle groups disintegrated before reinforcements could respond. Ships that had been feared invincible disintegrated in seconds, leaving only streams of energy and echoes of despair. Humanity's final weapon was not mindless, it was strategic, judging who deserved annihilation and who remained untouched. Leora's breath caught as she maneuvered her reconnaissance craft through the chaos. She had seen space battles before, witnessed civilizations fall, but nothing compared to this display of raw, calculated power. Her sensors picked up a human vessel, a rogue fleet approaching the battlefield at breakneck speed. Its design was unfamiliar, sleek, yet unmistakably human. Soren's voice trembled over the comms. "Commander, they're hostile, they're humans." Leora's jaw tightened. "Rogue human fleet?" she asked. She felt her stomach twist. Some humans, it seemed, disagreed with the planet's judgment. They sought to seize control of the weapon, to harness the living planet for their own ambitions. If they succeeded, it could mean humanity's destruction, or worse, a weapon turned against the innocent. The planet's pulse grew more intense, almost like a heartbeat racing in anticipation. Its energy stretched into tendrils, arcs of molten light leaping into space, twisting and pulsing with intelligence. Leora realized it wasn't merely attacking. It was defending, strategizing, adapting to threats she could barely grasp. Soren's voice cut through the comms again, trembling. "Commander, they're firing. The rogue humans are firing." Leora's stomach dropped. She watched in horror as energy bursts from the rogue fleet collided with the planetary defenses. Massive explosions rippled across orbit, sending debris careening through the void. Yet the planet responded instantly, energy arcs sweeping out like living serpents, neutralizing attacks without harming the surrounding fleet or innocent colonies. It was an intelligence beyond anything Leora had ever witnessed. Her heart raced. Humanity had returned not just to fight, but to assert control over their destiny. But even among humans, conflicts brewed. The planet acted as both guardian and judge, and Leora realized the enormity of her responsibility. She had to protect the weapon, guide it, and prevent catastrophe. A sudden tremor shook her pod violently. Sparks flew from the hull as the planet pulsed, sending waves of energy through every conduit. Leora gritted her teeth, fighting to maintain control. She saw streams of molten metal and energy leap toward the rogue fleet, dismantling ships with precision. Yet she also felt the planet hesitate, its pulse stuttering for a fraction of a second. Something in its calculations had faltered. The rogue human commander, defiant and desperate, launched another strike. Leora's breath caught. One wrong calculation, one misstep, and the planet itself could spiral out of control, obliterating everything in its reach, including humanity. She swallowed hard. "We survive by trusting it and by guiding it," she muttered, fingers flying over controls. She extended herself mentally, feeling the planet's consciousness brushing against hers, aware of her presence, responsive to her decisions. Energy spiraled around her pod as the planet's tendrils swept through space, neutralizing threats while sparing innocent vessels. A strange calm settled in her chest. The weapon was deliberate, intelligent, and for now, aligned with her will. Yet beneath that calm lurked terror. The planet's pulse flickered, unstable, as if it bore an ambition even she could not fully comprehend. Above the battlefield, fleets paused, awestruck. Humanity's final weapon had revealed itself not as a mindless force, but as a sentient arbiter of vengeance and justice. The galaxy trembled in the shadow of the planet's awakening. Leora whispered to herself, eyes wide. This is only the beginning." The void trembled under the sheer weight of the living weapon. Humanity's planet, colossal and breathing, hovered like a god of vengeance above shattered fleets. Tendrils of energy stretched into space, arcs of molten light pulsing with intent, illuminating the stunned faces of every commander in orbit. Leora Vance gripped her pod's controls, feeling every vibration, every pulse of awareness. She knew the planet wasn't just alive, it was aware, judging, and learning. But then came the rogue human fleet, emerging like shadows from the nebulae. Their intentions were clear: control the planet, bend it to their will, seize humanity's ultimate power for themselves. Leora's stomach twisted. Some humans, centuries removed from the near extinction of their species, sought dominion rather than survival. And if they succeeded, the weapon could annihilate humanity itself. Leora's breath hitched. She had no choice. She initiated a direct psychic link with the planet, risking everything. She felt the hum of consciousness wrap around her mind, a surge of energy so immense it threatened to tear her apart. The planet was not just a weapon. It was billions of human souls fused into matter and energy, alive with anger, sorrow, and purpose. "Listen," she whispered, feeling her thoughts merge with the pulse of molten light. "We choose survival, not annihilation. We judge only those who would destroy us." The psychic resonance hit the rogue fleet like a tidal wave. Ships shuddered, their systems failing under the overwhelming force of billions of human minds acting as one. They froze mid-flight, unable to maneuver. Leora could feel the planet weighing their intent, parsing their memories, their motives, even the impulses of their leaders. The rogue humans wavered, caught in the invisible grip of a force greater than any weapon ever imagined. Tendrils of energy lashed out, not to destroy indiscriminately, but to neutralize. Ships were dismantled in precise sequences, components shredded and scattered into space, leaving no innocent casualties. Leora gasped. Humanity's weapon was a judge, not a destroyer, executing its verdict with terrifying precision. Yet even in triumph, a warning resonated through her mind. The core's pulse flickered, unstable. The energy feeding the planetary consciousness surged unevenly, threatening catastrophic feedback. Even the ultimate human weapon carried risk. Leora realized with a shiver that she was not just guiding a weapon, she was piloting a force of nature that could turn on her species if provoked, misled, or miscalculated. She extended herself further, feeling every vein of molten light, every heartbeat of energy. Her mind fused with the planet's, navigating its thoughts, reassuring it, aligning its purpose with survival and measured vengeance. It responded, pulses stabilizing as the rogue fleet disintegrated, leaving only drifting remnants behind. Silence fell, vast and heavy, as the planet's consciousness settled. Leora exhaled, trembling. Humanity had survived, but at an unimaginable cost. She bore the responsibility of controlling the most powerful sentient weapon in history. The galaxy, awestruck, realized that humanity was no longer vulnerable, no longer subjugated. They were arbiters of fate. Yet even in the victory, Leora felt unease. The planet's pulse suggested evolution, ambition beyond her comprehension. Its sentience was growing, extending its awareness into the void, perhaps into realms she could not control. She understood with chilling clarity that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of a force that could reshape the galaxy itself. Above her, the shattered stars reflected the molten aurora of humanity's vengeance. The ghost fleet vanished into the void, leaving the planet alone, colossal, alive, and watching. Leora whispered into the psychic link, almost a plea, "Guide us and not against us." The planet's heartbeat resonated in response, steady, patient, and ominously powerful. Somewhere deep within, a flicker hinted at desires she could not yet understand. Humanity had reclaimed the stars, but the question remained, would the weapon serve them or transcend them? Leora's eyes widened as she realized the truth. The galaxy had survived the first reckoning, but the living human weapon was awakening, and its ambitions were only beginning to reveal themselves. The galaxy held its breath. Stars flickered in the shadow of humanity's planet-sized weapon, a sentient behemoth that pulsed with light, power, and intelligence beyond comprehension. Fleets, empires, and civilizations watched in awe and fear. The Kainari, the Dreyloks, the Aelth, all had underestimated humanity. All had misjudged the survivors who had vanished centuries ago. Commander Leora Vance floated above the planet's core, her mind fused with the consciousness of the living weapon. The pulse beneath her hummed with billions of human memories, desires, and vengeance, but also with hope. It was learning, evolving, and understanding its role not only as humanity's final defense, but as a force capable of shaping the galaxy's destiny. "Commander," Lieutenant Soren whispered over the comms, awe and fear mingling in his voice. It's calming. The destruction has stopped. It's choosing." Leora's jaw tightened. "It's judging," she said, "and now it will act only when it knows the target deserves it." She felt the pulse in her mind slow, flowing like a river of molten light. The rogue humans had been eliminated, but the galaxy at large had been spared. The weapon's consciousness had made a decision: strike with justice, not chaos. From orbit, Leora could see fleets trembling, some retreating, some frozen in disbelief. Entire civilizations had witnessed the impossible, a planet that thought, that judged, that fought with human ingenuity amplified beyond reason. It was a warning. It was a promise. Humanity had returned, not to beg for survival, not to negotiate, but to assert its sovereignty over the stars. Her thoughts drifted to the human colonies, the lost worlds, the civilizations that had perished at the hands of merciless enemies. This weapon was their legacy, their vengeance encoded into living matter. And yet, there was restraint. The weapon was intelligent enough to know the difference between predator and prey, between oppressor and innocent. Leora felt a strange calm, the pulse of the planet resonating with hers. She had become not a commander, but a guardian, a bridge between humanity and its ultimate creation. The weapon's thoughts were no longer just about survival. They were about purpose, balance, and evolution. Then a ripple passed through the planet's surface. Mountains shifted gracefully, rivers of molten energy coiled like living serpents, and the horizon glowed with a brilliance that made entire star systems appear dim. The planet was asserting its dominance, not through mindless destruction, but by demonstrating that humanity, even after near extinction, was a force the galaxy could never ignore. Leora's heart pounded as she whispered into the psychic link. "We have returned. We are no longer hidden. We are not weak. We are alive." The planet's pulse surged in response, a radiant wave that swept across space, visible even from the farthest reaches of nearby systems. It was a beacon, a signal, a warning. Humanity had returned, and it would endure. Across the galaxy, fleets watched, awestruck and terrified. Rumors would spread, legends would form, and every civilization would reevaluate its place in the cosmos. Humanity was no longer a whisper, a myth, a cautionary tale. It was a living force, unstoppable and aware, with the galaxy itself under its gaze. Leora's gaze fell on the planet's molten horizon. Somewhere beneath the layers of energy and stone, billions of human memories pulsed, and she realized the ultimate truth. This weapon was more than survival. It was humanity itself, immortalized, amplified, and awake. A calm settled over her mind as the pulse slowed, steady, unwavering. Humanity's judgment had been delivered, the rogue threats neutralized, and yet the weapon waited, patient, knowing the next challenge would come. The galaxy had no defense, but humanity had its champion. Leora